So there's a few components that are part of this twin turbo system. The first is the manifold. So it's actually a pretty simple manifold. It's literally 3 runners that go into one side here, and then 3 runners go into another side here. But it is bridged in the middle with this little flexi joint thing too for expansion. So this is the twin turbo assembly. As you can see, it's got a bunch of random garbage still attached to it, which we will remove very shortly. You can see turbo here, turbo. Actually, this is too annoying. Let me take it off. I have a feeling that this wasn't running stock boost. Okay, now we got a better look. So you got your manifold here, you get your 6 ports, they flow into here. This is the front turbo, this is the back turbo, and then the exhaust flows into here and then comes out of here. That's how turbos work. But you'll notice that this isn't actually a normal type of system. You'll see this is the exhaust for the front turbo, it flows out of here, and then you'll notice back here it goes down and out is the exhaust for the second turbo for this guy. So it goes down, underneath, and over. But you'll notice inside is this little valve. Oh wow, this thing's pretty seized up. Basically it's just a little valve that opens and closes and then allows for flow to occur out of turbo number 2. So this is exhaust flow. Now here's the thing, if this second turbo can't actually flow the exhaust out, it's not actually going to accept the exhaust either because it's path of least resistance, right? So essentially what happens is in low RPM, this is closed, and as such, this second turbo cannot exhaust any exhaust, and thus all of the exhaust, instead of flowing out of here and here, all of it comes out of just the one, goes into here, spins up turbo number 1. That's not a good noise. Spins up turbo number 1, so this turbo spins up really quickly because you have 6 exhaust ports spinning up one teensy-weensy little turbo. That's stage 1. Now, this valve isn't the only valve that exists in this system. There's actually a ton of them. Well, not a ton, but like 3 or 4. So once this thing is spun up, then inside of here is another little exhaust bypass valve, and what that does is it actually starts opening up and starts allowing a little bit of exhaust flow into this turbine on the second. So it actually shares a little bit of its flow into here, but this is still closed, so it's not actually flowing from the manifold through here and thus not actually spinning this. But just this little bit of shared exhaust through here comes in and actually starts spinning up this turbo very lightly, what's called freewheeling. It doesn't create any boost pressure at this point, and it also can't. Even if this turbo was spinning up, there's also what's called an inlet air control valve inside of the charge pipe, the boosted pipe before going into the intercooler. There's actually a little valve in there that's completely closed as well. So this can't even send boost pressure even if it was spinning. Essentially, there's this exhaust bypass valve and the inlet air control valve that both keep this turbo from making boost. Stage 3 is essentially this starting to open up and then allowing flow from the manifold into here and thus spinning up this turbo. But the intake air control valve is still closed. So there's a little bypass that allows a little bit of boost. So this thing starts spooling up. This happens at around 3,800 to 4,000 RPM, depending on a bunch of things, including vehicle speed, inlet air pressure, like, I don't know. The ECU looks at a bunch of random stuff. That's stage 3. So this thing is essentially what's called pre-spooling, and but still closed off from the intake side, not allowed to actually boost. And then stage 4, which is the final stage, this opens up completely, allows for full flow through both sides of the turbo, thus evenly splitting the exhaust. So 3 cylinders will fully supply this, and then from here 3 cylinders will fully supply that, so they'll be working completely identically and symmetrically. Exhaust will be flowing out of here, and then the inlet air control valve it'll open up, and then boom, they'll start pressurizing equally. So you'll get your 11, 13 psi, whatever it is, out of here, and your same amount of pressure out of here, and it is acting as a normal true twin system. So that's how it works. Essentially, all it does is start spooling this, turns this off, then starts pre-spooling this very slowly through 2 stages, and then fully opens this and then allows it to spool. And that's it. It's a little bit complicated, but not too bad. Let's take these apart and see what they look like on the inside. I already know where to begin with this. Ow! You can see the heat discoloration on this bolt just from being on the exhaust. Here's the exhaust side of this turbo. It's a bit hard to see. The intake side really does look a bit like a snail, huh? So it's pretty cool. You can see it says Toyota. And there it is, little teensy weensy tiny little thing. Look at that. Most useful tool in the garage, the handle to your jack. And for those of you complaining about me using the ratcheting side to break extremely hard to break bolts, these are Harbor Freight, so alright. Boom. There's turbo number 2. This one, you can see the intake's actually in much better shape. Wow. Okay, this one's in way better shape than number 1. And then here's the exhaust side here. Honestly, this turbo number 2 looks in to be fantastic shape, especially compared to the, oh god. Here you go, twin turbos. You got the back one, the front one. You can see how much darker this one is than this one. Clearly this thing has seen less use. Not too bad. Can you guys hear that? So yeah, this thing is definitely past its prime. It's not just the shaft play on these turbos that's a problem though. They're actually blowing a ton of oil out the back. So either way, these things are gonna need a full rebuild. So if this twin turbo system is kind of kaput, that's gonna cost anywhere from $600 to $1,000 even. I'm not sure if that's totally worth it. Now we could look into rebuilding these ourselves, but the question is it really worth the effort to go through just to rebuild these and go back to a stock twin setup, which God knows how long it'll last with the abuse that I give a car. So that begs the question, should we just go single turbo? Now, if you guys remember the red Supra build, link over here, we had a precision 67mm that ended up blowing. It was blowing a crazy amount of oil through the turbine housing, and so we ended up scrapping it and going with a newer 67mm ball bearing turbo. The thing is, that old blown turbo, well, it's right here. Well, not all of it, obviously, but we have the rest of it just sitting around, and we may as well take it apart and see if we can rebuild it, because the thing is, rebuild kits for turbos are insanely cheap. You can get them for like 50, $100. And if you do the work yourself, then you'd have a pretty much freshly rebuilt turbo for $100. I guess in the next episode, what we'll do is we'll grab that turbo and just rip it apart and then see if we can rebuild it, because if so, we might be able to get this thing single turboed and making 400, 450 horsepower for like $100, which is insane. Of course, we gotta buy a manifold and a wastegate, and that's gonna add up a little bit more, but either way, this already cheap Supra is getting a pretty cheap single turbo conversion. It's gonna make some pretty cheap horsepower. Now, of course, if that turbo isn't rebuildable, then, I mean, I don't know. We might be looking into something a bit more pricey, but we'll have to see from there. Please don't take all my money.